Being able to describe mechanisms precisely and accurately, and at a level and in a way that the reader needs and can understand, is perhaps the most essential skill of technical writing. This skill is particularly important for those who produce documents involving specifications and instructions. Mechanism description documents are built around precise descriptions of size, shape, color, finish, texture, and material, and they can be written for a wide range of audience competencies. Very often, such documents include figures, diagrams, or photographs that help to clarify the worded description. Some descriptions, for example, components of space systems, might require additional attributes such as weight or mass. A more specialized mechanism description, the functional mechanism description, describes a mechanism with key physical attributes related to operating parameters. This type of description, which often includes specific operational standards, can be used to provide specifications for this mechanism. Here is a model for a general description of a mechanism. In the introduction, you need to define the mechanism with a technical definition and add extensions to discuss any theory or principle necessary for the reader to understand the description. Be careful here. Think about what you are doing, for whom you are doing it, and why you are doing it. Do not lose sight of the reader's knowledge and skill level or forget the purpose of the report. The goal is not to show how smart you are, but rather to communicate the information. So when you are discussing theory and a mechanism description, a good rule is to do what is necessary, but only what is necessary. Always make sure you add only what the reader needs for the purpose at hand. If the reader does not need any theory or operating principles, do not provide any. Afterwards, you need to describe the mechanism's overall function or purpose. Then you describe the mechanism's overall appearance, for example, shape, color, material, finish, texture, mass, weight, and/or size, if necessary. Finally, you list the mechanism's parts in order in which you intend to describe them. This listing is an organizational blueprint for the remainder of the mechanism description. Consequently, the decision regarding the order in which to list the mechanism's parts is not trivial. It effectively determines the structure for the rest of the mechanism description. There are two types to order the parts: spatially and functionally. Using a spatial organization, you can move from left to right, or top to bottom, or inside out or inside in. Using a functional approach, you can order the parts in terms of how the parts function with one another. Functionally, for example, you could start with the leads which connect the circuit to the carbon element. Remember the example in the previous video lecture. The 33 kilo-ohm 1-watt carbon resistor is a device that impedes the flow of electric current, which is protected by the casting and around which the carbon bands are painted to indicate resistance and tolerance values. Using this approach, you might write the final sentence of the introduction as follows. The resistor consists of the following parts: 2 wire leads, the carbon element, the casting, and the color bands. Or if you are using, for example, an inside-out spatial approach, the final sentence of the introduction might read this way. The resistor consists of the following parts: the carbon element, the wire leads, the casting, and the color bands. Both approaches are fine as long as they are logical and made sense to the reader. In any case, once the parts have been listed, move on to the discussion section, where detailed descriptions of the parts are provided. If when writing the body of the paper you decide to change the order in which the parts are discussed, be sure to also change the order in which the parts are listed in the introduction. However, you need to describe each part. First, define the first part with a technical definition, adding extensions as needed to deal with theory or operating principles. Then, describe the part's overall function or purpose. Describe its shape, color, material, finish, texture, and size. as well as any other physical attributes appropriate for the mechanism and its function, using precise measures and descriptors. Also be sure to use figures, diagrams, and photographs as necessary. For each remaining part, repeat the pattern of defining and describing. The final section of the mechanism description serves two purposes. It briefly summarizes the mechanism's function, and it provides a sense of finality to the document. Include a sentence that by tone and content indicates to the reader that the mechanism description is complete. Together, these parts form one of the most commonly used circuit components in electric systems today. This final sentence tells the reader not to look for anything else because the document is ending. It is a courtesy to the reader.